20 years ago, as video games continued to evolve, I think it's safe to say that we didn't expect video games to reach a particularly wide range of emotional impacts outside of fun or frustration. Much of the emotional delivery beyond that had to come from the game's non-interactive cutscenes, but it wasn't until the survival horror genre started to really pick up momentum in the late 90s that we realized just how effective a game's playing mechanics themselves can make us feel. Cutscenes are the easy way out, but it takes true talent to let the playing mechanics themselves involve the player in the emotion or message one hopes to convey, while still making the player want to see the game through to the end. Starting today, we'll be exploring This War of Mine, a mouse-driven action-adventure game on PC and Mac by 11-Bit Studios. It's a game that explores the trials and tribulations of war and a perfect example of playing mechanics done right. Much like the hit indie title Papers, Please, This War of Mine has no voice acting and no cutscenes. It instead focuses on using its game mechanics to pull the player in a grim state of survival. It has the opportunity to make players feel triumphant, or like a complete douchebag as well. The title of the game would lead you to believe you'll be put in the shoes of a soldier on the front lines, but in reality, that's not the case at all. You control a group of mere civilians who have taken up shelter and are simply trying to survive in a besieged, war-torn city. The player is tasked with managing the group's hunger, health, and morale until the declaration of a ceasefire, which happens at a random duration. The game itself is divided in two parts. Daytime, where you manage your makeshift shelter by building workshops, tools, making the place more comfortable and secure, and managing the needs of your group. The second part, nighttime, is where you can send one member of your group out to scavenge for essential items, make valuable trades with friendly survivors, or wind up in a life-or-death skirmish with armed thugs. A great deal of tension comes from the fact that death is permanent in this game, and since most characters are just average civilians, it is very easy for a scavenging mission to go very wrong. This can leave the player in a situation where they're always assuming the worst in seeing their fellow man, causing them to accidentally commit an atrocity on innocent people, all in the name of assuring their own survival. To make tensions worse, you run the risk every night of having your shelter raided by bandits for your valuable supplies. This means in order to make the night safer, you need to ensure your survivors have weapons available to use at home and someone is on guard duty. Failing to leave your survivors equipped can result in injury, loss of supplies, or loss of life entirely. As we venture into this playthrough, we will most likely rob people that didn't deserve it. We may be forced to kill people who were just defending themselves from us, and we'll probably not even make it through the war to begin with. One thing is for sure, that this is not a fun experience, but it's a really engrossing one. I'm fully aware that I've been known as the guy that makes humorous content, but to try and inject humor into this playthrough by commentary would be a disservice to the game and its atmosphere. This is my most respectful foot forward in covering this title, so with that out on the table, let's not waste any more time. Let's jump in and try to survive this war of mine. Welcome home. It's going to be the only home that you'll know for the next several weeks. You'll notice that it's got several floors here that we're going to be utilizing. There's also 3 survivors that we're starting out with. Let's learn a little about them. How long has this siege lasted? It's hard to say when every day is a struggle for survival. The city is crawling with snipers. Shelling is ordinary business almost every night. Phones don't work, there's a shortage of food and meds, and many people are left homeless. Bruno and Marco have always been good friends, so when the war broke out, they decided to stick together. They met Pavel while scavenging for supplies. He used to be Pagoran's star football player, Now he's just another homeless victim of war, so they teamed up, hoping for the best. So this is the set of survivors we've been given. There are 12 total survivors in the game, and each one has a special skill of some kind. We've got Pavel the runner, Bruno the good cook, and down here is Marco, who is a skilled scavenger. First things first, we just got here, and there's a lot of cleanup to do, as you can see. We're going to get the job done faster by getting each of the 3 to do their own part. We have a few junk piles to dig through for some starter supplies. Some of the doors are boarded up, which take a few extra seconds to clear. And we have large piles of rubble to clear as well. We have Marco and Bruno here to clear the doors, so let's send Pavel upstairs to see what he can find. Yep, some of these doors are locked, so we'll find a solution for those later. Marco and Bruno found some unopened drawers, so let's take a look. And as luck would have it, Bruno found himself a lockpick, so we have a solution for at least one of the locked doors. Alright, Marco's going to clear some rubble out of the way while Bruno goes through a cabinet. And we found another lockpick, so that's 2 locks we can force. This rubble pile looks like it's going to take a while. There's a reason for that though, as Marco states for us. We need to find or build a shovel to make this process faster. So for the time being, we have to do it by hand. I'm going to send Bruno upstairs to check that junk pile. You'll notice I'm double-clicking to make the characters run to their destination. You can also right-click for that if you like. Clicking once makes characters walk or sneak their way to their destination. So I'll explain everything that we're picking up as we go along, but in short, much of what we're picking up are building materials used to build everything we need and patch up the many holes in the walls. We have a simple workshop provided at the start here. I want to start building beds, but unfortunately many of the rooms are still full of rubble or are locked. So we're going to need to clear the place out some more before we can put the beds in. And now that's 3 for 3 working on rubble piles. Oh, never mind. Pavel just finished his pile. Let's see what we have in this cabinet here. Clean water and a few extra parts. Marco cleared his pile too, but as you can see, that cabinet is locked and we only have 2 lockpicks to go around, so we have to decide carefully on which locks to use them on for now. While I decide on that, you probably notice the orange text on the character photos on the bottom right. Each one represents a condition that's either above or below average, and you'll notice Marco came to us slightly wounded and Pavel came to us slightly sick. Since these are minor conditions, however, a little bed rest should take care of both. Now I chose to have Marco unlock this room because it'll allow us to free up space of another room and get to an unlocked cabinet as well. Alright, Bruno's hard work is paid off, and his reward is yet another pile of rubble. Meanwhile, I think we have enough space to start putting some beds down, so let's have Pavel get to work on that. I know it probably doesn't matter where I put these, but I like to be somewhat practical with where I put things. These basement areas don't look very cozy, but upstairs look like they were once used as bedrooms, so let's put them up there. While Pavel is upstairs building that, Marco just finished his rubble pile. Rummaging through the cabinet, we have herbs, water, and jewelry. The jewelry is useless on its own, but it serves as a reasonably valuable trading item, so we'll hang on to it for the time being. And we'll send Marco upstairs to build bed number 2. Bruno just finished his second pile, and we'll use the last lockpick we have to open this cabinet. And lucky for us, we found a bottle of medicine in here. And just in time too, because the day has come to a close. Now it's time to plan out the night. For scavenging duty, it Only makes sense to have Marco on it since he's got a larger inventory and can scavenge slightly faster. Pavel's still sick, so we'll give him bed rest while Bruno stands guard for the night. Our first destination will be the ruined block of flats, and its description is as follows. This block of flats has seen some heavy fighting. Most people had fled the area before the Viceni rebels clashed there with the military. The battle is over now, and there should be many things left to scavenge because people were leaving in a rush. Unfortunately, we have no tools or weapons available to us, so Marco will be going in empty-handed for this one. Welcome to the scavenging portion of the game. This is where things get really interesting. We're going to need a lot of everything, and thankfully our first junk pile here yields a very generous amount of raw meat. We'll need tons of components and wood throughout our journey, so we'll be picking those up in bulk. Looks like there's a baby carriage we can further inspect. Let's see what we got. The baby carriage isn't empty. A few objects lie scattered inside. A rattle, a smiling red crab well worn by baby teeth, and a feeding bottle half full of congealed mass that was probably a baby formula. Someone must have left in a terrible rush, or maybe they didn't need them anymore. We found a bullet in this pile, and a few more components and wood later, Marco's backpack is already full. We're going to keep looking around though, just in case there's any more food or medicine. Those are always going to be our top priority. We did find some weapon parts in here though, and I'd really like to be sure we have some of those, so we have to decide what to put back. We do have a few books already at home, so we'll be trading those too. Alright, as the description said earlier, everyone already left in a hurry, so there's really no need to take it slow in here. We'll just go ahead and run upstairs and see if there's anything else worth taking. There's still a lot of components and wood left. We might come back for these another night. Ooh, even more raw meat. Top priority item, so I'm gonna have to leave something behind. The rotten tomato icon there is fertilizer, which is useful in more ways than one, so I'm not putting that back. I'll just go ahead and put back some components in exchange. Now there's still more to see, but there's a problem. Both of these doors are grated, and will only open if we had a saw on hand. Unfortunately we don't, so we're gonna have to come back here later once we do. For now, we're done here. Let's head home. Looks like everything went okay while Marco was out scavenging. Since Marco brought back a great deal of parts, we can afford to build our first cooking stove. See, that raw meat we picked up earlier is much better cooked. Eating it raw only has half the effect of cooked meat, and you run the risk of making those eating it sick as well. While Bruno works on that, Marco will be building us a rainwater collector. You can't cook that meat without clean water, so this is also going to help keep us fed. Pavel's still resting off his sickness, but we need to put him to work for a moment and let him finish up that second bed he started building yesterday. As for Bruno, we'll have him turn some of our wood into fuel to cook with. Looks like Marco's rainwater collector is ready, but in order for it to work, we need to build some filters for it. That, of course, costs components, so we'll have him build 2 of them before we send Marco off to bed for another scavenge tonight. As for Bruno, he'll be preparing the food for everybody now that we have enough to cook with. Bruno, being the good cook of the bunch, requires less water and less fuel to prepare food. Marco will be the first to eat before we send him off to bed. After Bruno got his meal, we had a bit of an oversight. We didn't have enough water to cook a helping for Pavel, so before we can feed him, we need to set up the rainwater collector, which dispenses about 4 units of it per use. Of course, even after it's set up, the thing still needs time to filter the water, so Pavel has a bit of a wait ahead of him before he can eat. While we wait for that, we'll send Bruno up for a nap. We have just enough components left, so Pavel can pass the time by building us a radio. This will not only allow us to tune into the news to find out what's happening outside, but there's also some music that we can leave on to keep morale up around here. Now that our radio is ready, let's see what's happening out there. The rebel leader instructed us to warn the listeners not to cross the front line. Failure to comply could result in death. A rock station we can listen to later. Despite desperate counterattacks by the rebels trying to lift the siege of Pagoran, the city remains cut off. Government forces do not allow any aid to reach the city, claiming it would end up in rebel hands. And in case you're wondering, Ulriznavia Pagoran is only a fictional setting. The upcoming days should still be nice and warm, perfect for a stroll in the park. Alright, for morale's sake, we're going to leave some music on now. Whenever you tune into a rock station or a classical station, the music will replace the background music until it's turned off or the day ends. And it looks like the rainwater collector is done, so Pavel can finally eat just before nightfall. Let's wake Bruno up and get him down there to cook. That's much better. Now we can go ahead and skip the last few minutes of the day and go straight to nightfall. Night preparations will be similar to last night. Marco will scavenge, and this time we'll let Bruno sleep in while Pavel stands guard. We'll be returning to the ruined block of flats, and the reason for that is, every time you visit a place, it sets in motion the chance for other scavengers to start picking the place clean every night you go someplace else afterward. Well, we still need all the materials we left behind last time, so we're gonna go back and pick up the rest. And here we are again. Now, some of you may have noticed the odd sonar pulses coming off of Marco as he's running. That's the amount of sound that you're emitting, and it varies depending on your actions. Needless to say, walking slowly emits the least amount of noise. Now, the first item I picked up a moment ago is a low-quality rolled-up cigarette, which brings me to the subject of character weaknesses. Certain characters have addictions to certain items. Some characters are addicted to having coffee every day, while certain characters such as Bruno back home is a smoker. It doesn't appear to have any negative effects if you leave him without smokes for days, but it does mean that once you have smokes, which can be traded as valuable currency, he will burn through a good number of them without asking. Well, once again we've filled up on parts, but I'm greedy and I want some more. I don't feel 1 unit of empty shell casings are worth leaving 4 units of components behind, so I'll trade the 2. 1 unit of coffee, also not worth it, so more components for us. And you know what, forget the low quality roll-up as well. We'll keep the high quality roll-up and grab some more wood. You'll also notice I took 2 books with me. Books are good for morale or for burning if you're desperate for fuel. Now, as far as I know, nobody but us can get through grated doors, so we can take our time in coming back to get what's behind them. That'll do it for this night and for this episode. Join me next time as we continue to build up our shelter and travel into much more dangerous locations. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.